Hello and good evening. Hi, I'm Samuel Isaiah, and you're watching Let's Edufy by Edufication. Now, who and what is Edufication? Let me explain. So, Edufication is a platform that advocates for critical education discourse. And through our show, Let's Edufy, we intend to engage in dialogue with various experts and stakeholders to understand their perspectives. Now, today we are going to talk and going to discuss about navigating teacher identity, a pertinent issue, one which perhaps we do not talk enough about. Hence, we are delighted to have with us Dr. Mariah Ibrahim, the head of Department of Languages at IPG Campus Pulau Pinang. And she's also one of Edification's advisors. And most importantly, she's my personal friend and my mentor, of which I've had the privilege to learn from. Hello and welcome to our show, Dr. Mariah.
Hi, it's really good to see all of you, to see you, especially Sam, and I know some of our friends and our former IPG trainees are watching us. So it's a good thing. It's like having class all over again. So thank you.
Right. Since we are talking about class, I'm just going to jump in with the critical questions like we used to. So, Dr. Maria, in your many years in teacher education, I'm sure you have seen it all. So, what does it mean to be a good and effective teacher?
I thought the first question is supposed to be an easy one. Now, this is a very difficult question to answer because when you talk about being an effective teacher, you've got to start thinking about from whose perspective is a good or effective teacher. Now, in my early years as a teacher, of course, I'm always so stressed and answerable to the school, to the headmaster, to the principal, and to JPN who wants to see result. So in terms of the state, an effective teacher means carrying out classes that's going to ascertain students' score in the exam. So at the end of the day, an effective teacher is the one who could get A's. And then also there's from the perspective of parents who also want the grades, but also expect the teachers to have some sort of ability to guide the students in terms of maybe disciplining them. And then society has a lot of expectation about being what a good effective teacher is. So when you talk to parents, they want teachers who can make a difference, who can do a lot of things for students. Now we ask that question, so it is very important that we also ask, like, what are the teachers' own definition of an effective teacher? So you see, like my class, Sam, I'm not going to provide answers. I'm just going to get you guys to think. You know,
Right.
like, whose definition are we talking about when we talk about a good teacher? Like, do teachers themselves, now those of you listening in, do you have a definition of what a good teacher is? What are your belief system? And I don't know whether you know this guy or not. He's quite famous now. I think in 2020 he was one of the top 10 finalists for the global teacher, and I can't remember his name, but he was told that he cannot be an effective teacher because the students don't want to learn. He was told that he would be wasting his time because he cannot be effective because the students don't want to learn. And if he had listened to that perception of what being a effective teacher is like, meaning like to change the perception of the students, and he would have failed. He would have failed. But he had his own definition of an effective teacher. He wanted to see his students gain something. You know, at the end of the day, even if a student come in and you can make a slight change. Now, I had the experience of going to a school, observing students on practicum. I've been doing it for the last 10 years. And in one school, there was a boy, I think he had some learning difficulties. It was never diagnosed, autistic or dyslexic, but he would just be going in and out of everybody's classroom. The school knew about it, but they didn't do anything. But the girl who was from IPGK PP, and she decided she wasn't going to ignore this child. And even with that 3 months there, this child was in standard 3. He could not read, he could not write. But at the end of her practicum, the boy wrote his name. So to me, it's small things about being an effective teacher. It's not a big thing. It's like you going in, and I always tell my students who go into practicum, like, I want to see something that they learn that they did not know at 9 o'clock, but they know at 10 o'clock. So you've achieved something. So,
Ma'am,
but
do you think that this definition, these principles, these beliefs, these sets of beliefs that teachers have individually, do you think that the pandemic now we've had like a global pandemic that's happened to us right now? Do you think it affects these principles? Do we need to change somehow our principles and beliefs? Does the system, does the teacher education system actually promotes this change, or do we need to change to adapt the pandemic?
whether we promote change or we don't, it has to happen. This pandemic is a wake-up call for me as a teacher trainer. Like, I'm wondering, like, my group of students who are going out teaching soon, have I given them enough? Have I given them enough skills in terms of ICT skills? Is it enough, and not just enough that they are able to use Google Classroom or they are able to use Telegrams and all that. How do they cope with all the other important ingredients of teaching? Human relation. I myself am struggling with Google Classroom. I'm so used to having students in front of me and we talk about classroom arrangement, we talk about group work, we talk about this and that. Never in our life have we talked about students in their own homes with parents at the background. Never have we discussed that. With my students, I can take them out into the under the tree, before Sekolah Pokok that Samuel did. I was doing it with my cohort 5. We were learning literature under the tree, singing lots of chocolates for you to eat and stuff like that. And never imagined that I would have a class and they had to mute so that they could listen to me. And I tell a joke and they don't even laugh. And that scares me. And I think I mentioned that to the group of students that I was teaching last year. And I said, like, it's so sad that even when I tell a joke, I don't even hear you laugh. And then I have 2 boys, Firdaus and Aki. I don't know, they say they're going to be here. You met them online. And so they kindly unmute and go, and then mute again. Like, it's so scary. So, and going back to your question about the effective teacher, fundamentally, have we asked our students what they want from us? Sam, when I was doing my master's, a Form 2 students wrote in her reflection, we were born creative and then we go to schools and bam, teachers kill them. I totally changed my concept. That student who wrote that, I don't know, because it's a research and I don't know who she is. If she's listening, thank you very much, because we teachers sometimes forget who you are and what you want. They say English teachers make us write essays, but they do not read. They just mark our grammar errors. So those were my findings.
Latching on to that idea where you said this particular student said teachers are killing creativity of their students. I think oftentimes what the predicament that teachers are being put in is what kind of instructions and directives that we are getting from the top. So what do you think are the effects of top-down directives that may often dictate educators? And how can educators actually mitigate and maneuver while maintaining a sense of belonging? Because for me personally, and from some teachers I know, we eventually tend to lose ourselves. So should educators adapt to an upfront approach towards top-down directives, or is there a nuanced alternative?
I think any directive that does not take into account the teacher as a person, for me, is problematic. Yeah. I'll give you a personal experience, and then this is not about criticizing anybody in particular, but I think that if we want to be honest, we should be talking about these issues. Now, when the imposition of using thinking maps, I was in trouble. I'm not a map person. And to tell me that I had to use these maps and I can only use this map for vocabulary, I can only use this map for verbs, I can only use this map for cause and action, I don't want to use those maps. I'm not saying they're not important tools. I'm saying that we need to trust the teachers to know what tools to use to benefit their students. So it's like, I like to use metaphors again. If you have machines in the kitchen, but you keep buying new gadgets, but if you're cooking the same thing, then you're going to have all these machines stuck in your kitchen collecting dust. And if you're setting up an Italian kitchen, you will need different utensils from a Pakistani because you need the big pot to do your naan bread. So it's the same with teaching. When we bring in something, I feel that we need to understand that teachers have their preferences. Cikgu Helmi has his own style. Miss Ash has his own style. Teacher Ira has her own style, and Stephanus have their own style. These names are becoming like our household names. Even all teachers know these people, and we admire them. But even your first session with edification, I see people asking you, Sam, how do you handle this? How do you handle that? Sam cannot answer that. Mark cannot answer that. We need to train our teachers to maneuver. The word you use, maneuver. That's the word that we need to focus on how the teachers can use the tools that we give teachers. So I think if that's going to happen, we've got to open up more channels of communication.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. And I like to take you to the other thing when you talk about top-down directive. We have our standard Guru Malaysia. We have Standard Guru Malaysia 20108, and then we have SGM 2.0. It is very important that we have a document that we can fall back on, right? And SGM 2 is so much more improved because it talks about a wider range rather than first SGM is like your behavior, how you should behave, this and that. And it reminds me of reading a document in the 1920s in England. If you have a teacher, you have to wear a petticoat. To that extent of determining, yeah. And Sam, you have had the end of this as well. You know, you don't look like a teacher, right?
I don't look like one. Yeah, I heard that.
You were told that even when you were only in your trainees, you were told you don't look like a teacher. So my main concern is how do we achieve what's in the SGM? Now, I would like at this stage to tell a story, and I have his permission. You know him. His name is Amarol. And when he was in his PPISMP, he decided to have some early experience in teaching. So without any knowledge, pedagogical knowledge, he braved and went into a school and said, I want to learn how to teach. And the headmaster gave him a cane. And he says, you cannot teach without a cane because the students are naughty. And he has not even met the students. He was told that the students are naughty and he was given a cane. He took the cane out of politeness. You know how Amarol is. He went to the class. He did not use the cane. The students reinforced what the headmaster said by telling him, you can't be a teacher. Cikgu tak boleh jadi guru. And he asked, why? Because the boy said, you are not straight enough.
Right.
So even students, you know, they expect this identity of a lion. Even students have been given that expectation. So I think that negotiations have to take place. You need the teacher to be a disciplinarian. Fine, that's what we dream of. We want a country that has got discipline. You can see what's happening in America, and we don't want that to happen to us. Yes, we need some sort of order, but the order does not need to come through a cane. And the reason I did my study on teacher identity, if I can have a little bit more time, Amarol's story support, the most crucial story is me meeting my own teacher who told me that if he could meet God again, he will ask for 30 years. And every time I tell the story, I shiver. I'm shivering now because I asked him, why do you want another 30 years? He said, I want to teach all over again. I did it all wrong. And he was strict, and that's what he meant. He said he realized that he had lost so many students through being a strict teacher. And at that time, I had only entered IPG. And I was thinking like, my God, what if my students say that Puan Maria didn't teach me how to become a teacher? And so I started to think about the issues of identity. And that's how over the last 10 years, I've been reading and working and doing a postgrad on teacher identity because I've seen many, many stories. Like if we have another time and we can do something on narrative, I would like to do and share like how narrative can be such a learning point for us.
Man, we actually took the we actually looked at the literature of teacher identity, and there was two prominent theories or concepts that we found to be very interesting. Noddings 2005 discusses that it is essential for teachers to identify and respond to the needs of students, and Abedia 2012 proposes the notion of teachers as transformative intellectuals and cultural workers who can think critically and act transformatively. So my question is, do you think that these elements of teacher identity are cornerstones to our current teacher education system? If they are, why? And if they are not, why not? Why not? Or do we need or do we not need these elements in our system?
I will only speak in the area that I'm in, and that's TESOL education. Are we there? I don't think so. We have it in education papers, but not in the TESOL papers. Are we going to have it? Yes. What we did was, there's currently this, we're working on a new TESOL program actually. And what we did was we interviewed young teachers, products of IPGs. We interviewed them and we wanted to learn from them how we can better improve our system. Yeah. So there were interviews, and this was done with Cambridge English. We go all over Malaysia, even to Sabah and Sarawak, getting feedbacks from lecturers, from students, even from schools, to see how we can improve. But your question, the second part, is specifically about transforming and cultural workers. I see that we do that through education papers. And this is my concern. That part of education is divorced from the mainstream course. So my TESOL students with me, they'll be doing lots of courses, lots of pedagogical courses, technological, content knowledge and all that. But the other part that they did on education will be run by the educational faculty. I think there is a missing link. Because they need to talk about all those things about being a transformative intellectual or being agent of change or being a global citizen. They do not need to know that separate. I mean, like, they need to know that in the whole TESOL program. So then it will determine the kind of activities that they do, the kind of text that they're bringing into the classroom, the kind of discussion that they're going to conduct in the classroom will be based. So I think that the whole bigger picture is missing. We need to sit down. We need to sit down and talk about this. Now, I think that we've started. We've started through NPDL, but you see, NPDL is very clear of a big picture. Now, again, not criticizing it. This is difficult. Teaching is very difficult. Whoever said teaching is easy, come and teach. And teaching is very difficult because I talk to my lecturers about NPDL, and as much as they say, yeah, it's a good thing, but we can't do it. And why can't they do it? It's because some of them have struggled with the course that when it was designed was not looked at holistically against all the other subjects. So we've come with separate courses for the programs, and now we are supposed to merge. It should start from the beginning. The merging should start before the courses are developed. So perhaps, you know, I have a few more years in the system, maybe we could do, because every day we're thinking about how to make our teacher education better. So we are moving into that. But individual teachers, individual lecturers are doing it. Individual lecturers on their own capacity during their voluntary time, during their mentor-mentee time, they are doing it. But I think that it should be more formal.
Right.
It should be more structured, and it should be looked at. So I really am uncomfortable about the education faculty being separate from all the other mainstream. It should marry.
Going back to what you said earlier, doesn't this, it feels to me, it looks like it's creating an overwhelming expectations on teachers, because educators are not only expected to be, for example, agents of change. They are not only expected to empower their students while maintaining their academic progress, deal with challenging physical, socioeconomic, cultural environments, but at the same time, there's another part of teacher identity about acting purposefully towards their professional growth, their own growth as a teacher. Now, how do you think teachers, or how do you think teacher education can prepare trainees and perhaps even in-service teachers to be able to strike that balance? I know it's really hard to strike a balance, but how do we strike that balance and at the same time seek professional development? Because over the years of being a teacher as well, there's always more things. Well, I've been a teacher. Today is like my anniversary, 16th of January. I enrolled in school 16th of January 2012. So ninth year being a teacher, and throughout the 9 years, there's always been more and more and more expectations on teachers. So how do we strike that balance and at the same time seek professional development?
Now, this question suggests, it implies that the teacher's job is divorced from the professional development. Yeah, they've got to do this and they want to develop. I think that it shouldn't be. Now, whatever a teacher does in the classroom, and whether it's to empower students or to ensure their progress or deal with all the challenges, these are the very elements of an educator's professional growth. Yeah, Sam, just as how who you have become, the person you have become today, working with your Asli kids, thinking of ways to make meaning for them, you have become an agent of change for them. You too have changed. So you have developed through your struggles. Yeah. So I think that teachers who are looking out to do something for their personal, professional growth should not see that those things are hindering your growth. You should be taking those as experience, and it's deep rooted in your practice every day, and that is where you grow from. So now people who are doing their masters sometimes come into me, and I have ex-students who say, ma'am, I want to do my masters, I want to move on. And they have this idea that personal growth means leaving the school. Now, to that, I would say not necessarily. And I often ask questions when they say like they don't have an area they want to do a research on. And my response to them is always like asking them, what questions do you want answered? What issues do you want demystified? So you need to know what problems you want to highlight. And these questions are, to me, the essence of an educator's growth. It defines who you are as a teacher. So how do we go about? This is what I've been shouting from day one. We need to do more reflection.
Right.
It is so important. There's a lecturer in
I knew you were going to say that. That's why I asked the question. Yeah, continue. Sorry.
Yeah, there's a lecturer from IPGK, Harold Ong, and he did a research on ability to reflect, and it's shockingly very low. It's very low. I met him at a conference in Hong Kong, and he was talking about how we do not talk enough about reflection and how that reflection is actually going to change us, change our practice. And the other question is how you're going to do it besides reflection. I'm referring to the theory of Wenger. Etienne Wenger, and he talks about our identity depends on reflection and also engagement. And this is where edification comes in. You need to have an organization that's going to engage young teachers, especially. Older teachers like me can come in if you want to learn. We can learn so much from you guys. And we need to reflect, we need to engage, we need to talk about, because being in a community of practice, and that's what his book is called, being in a community practice is the way to develop yourself without thinking that your classroom practices are hindrance. You know, you have to grow from that. That's your roots. Like a good tree, like an oak tree, takes 20 years to grow. Otherwise, you'll be like the air plants. There's some air plants, let them grow on air, but a good tree is deep down rooted. And it's the root of the problems are our students, and we need to learn from them. So forget the saya lilin yang membakar jiwa. No, you do not disappear when you teach. You actually grow, and that's enough. Do not leave schools because you think. Now, talking about leaving schools, this is problem about teacher attrition, because those who do not have a sense of identity, they eventually leave the profession. So I'm quite concerned about that. I don't think, and the research says that Van Quiz, if you anybody interested in the paper can write to me, and he says that the first 5 years is the most important because teacher attrition happens there. If the teachers can stay for 5 years, they stay as good teachers, yeah, not just staying there just to go staff room and come back and not making any impact. Those teachers who can find themselves, have their identity within that 5 years, they will continue to stay. You will have challenges. When I was first a teacher, I had all my ABM going to the class, and a senior teacher say, "Ha ha ha! Look at the young Chiku. We will see how long she
How long she
lasts."
lasts. Right,
And I'm
right.
so glad she said that, because at that critical point, I say I'm going to last till the day I retire. So here I am, still teaching, still wanting to learn.
Ma'am, you mentioned about the importance of having a community of practice, and you mentioned that this role that edification is playing as a platform, bringing together young teachers, teachers of old, is extremely crucial. Now, my question would be, besides the backing from the government or the Ministry of Education, what kind of other types of support would educators need in navigating and developing their identity? Besides having a community of practice, would there be any other suggestions that you might have?
Um, we can just say communities of practice, but different communities will have to tackle different issues. You
Hmm.
see, like in Penang, we are quite blessed with Pelta, and Pelta normally, usually they tackle a lot of pedagogical. They have workshops to teach people how to write, how to read, play games, do things. They're all more hands-on kind of thing. But we
Hmm.
also need other platforms that's going to support teachers in terms of their struggles, and that's even more important, because you can go to so many workshops and conferences but still cannot overcome the struggles that you are going to face, because you are going to have people, like as English teachers, you are going to have communities who may not like who you are. Not everybody want to learn English. We have resistance all the time. When I came
Hmm.
back from England as a young teacher, I was asked to handle the performance for hari hari ucapan, and I chose for the students. I was teaching in an Islamic school. I chose
Mhm.
for the students to do a performance, a nasheed, in English, and that was by Cat Stephen, who at that time had just converted to Islam, and he was writing nice children's songs. And so I wanted to do that. And at the meeting, Puan Maria, persembahan macam mana? We are going to do 2 English nasheed. And the teacher actually stood up and said, "Never in my life have I ever heard a nasheed in English."
English, yes. Right.
Thank God for my brevity. And I said, well, for the last 6 years in England, I have not heard a nasheed in Bahasa Melayu. And I had a very supportive guru besar, Puan Aina, who I miss dearly. And she said, Cikgu Maria, Cikgu Baru, she's a new teacher. She's come back from UK with new ideas. We let her. And I was lucky because the community of that school wanted that. They congratulated her and they said, this is what we have been waiting for. We want them to have Islamic knowledge, world knowledge, and we want them to excel in English. That was my starting point of that. And before I left the school, our drama team won first prize at the state drama competition. We won debates against even Penang big schools, and so yeah, so that was great. So we need
Yeah.
support. Support is very,
Right.
very important.
Right. We've got a few questions from our viewers today, and the first question would be, how can teachers actually conceptualize their teacherhood during this pandemic? I think uh, if I were to rephrase this question, how would a teacher actually reinforce their idea of being who they are and continually improve during the pandemic? I think we answered this question briefly in the introduction section of our session today, but would there be anything more for you to say?
I want to say to the person who asked this question, you are not alone. You're not alone. We are scared. We are all scared. We are as scared as the doctors in the wards. We are scared. They are scared of them getting the virus, but we are scared of not giving the students the education that they deserve. I'm freaking out. I'm thinking of throwing in the towel because, I'm not getting the satisfaction. But you get support. So you get support. I didn't know how to mark online, and then I had to call my colleagues, and they say, "Oh, you can buy this. It's going to be easy." We just got to talk to each other. It doesn't have to be a one-man show. It cannot be a one-man show. We need each other more so than ever. So thank God for education. Thank God for social media. We need to just support each other. So education, this is a challenge for us because this signal to us that people want help and they do need help. And how can we help when we ourselves are struggling? So thank you for asking that question. We have homework to do, lots of homework to do.
All right. Thank you so much for the wonderful answer that you gave. I think that beautifully wraps up our session today. So thank you so much, viewers. That's all the time that we have today. And on behalf of Edification, we hope you have been edified today. I'm Samuel Isaiah, and thank you for joining us. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.